So thank you, Prashant. I think thank you for conceiving this. It's not coming. Thank you for conceiving this session, which is so very important. I'm sure next time we will have it at a bigger platform. And I'm going to be talking about empowering the women. And when I think of empowering the women in ophthalmology, it is a very small aim. You will have to change. होता नहीं है, change करना पड़ेगा. So when you talk of just empowering the women in ophthalmology, it's a very small aim and a small game. And so I will be talking about bit of empowering empowering in general, but it is important to break the bias, and gender equality is important for today and also for a sustainable tomorrow. So the question is that, do you need it? And the answer is yes, you do need it. And if you look at the World Economic Forum, the gender gap is wide. The gender gap in this report mentions that female talent remains one of the most underutilized business resources, and without gender equality today, a sustainable future and an equal future remains beyond our reach. And when I looked at this data, some figures was really startling. If you look at the global gender gap score in 2021, it was 67.7%, remaining to be closed is 32%, and in 2020 we took a step backwards by 0.6%, which is attributed to decline in performance of large countries. And it will take, if you go by the trajectory, 135.6 years at this rate for the gender gap to close completely between men and women. So there are 4 key areas of gender gap: political participation, economic participation, educational attainment, health and survival. So maybe only in number 3 we might be closest as compared to men, because we are more educationally inclined, and in rest of the other 3 we are not close to them. So if you look at political participation, the area of the maximum gender gap, 22% is closed till date globally, and women represent only 26% of 35,000 parliament seats, and just 22.6% of over 3,400 ministers worldwide. So in 81 countries, there's never been a woman head of the state, and at the current rate of progression, it will take 145 years to attain gender equality. It is not going to happen in our lifetime, or maybe in our generations to come lifetime at least. If you look at the economic participation and opportunity, it is the second largest area of gender gap, again, after political participation, which is 58%. And again, it is going to take several years to fill this gap. Now, if you see, there is an increased proportion of women among skilled professionals and wage equality, but as far as the leadership roles are concerned, they are not there. Of all the managerial positions, women only occupy only 22% as compared to men. We are, I must say, the best here, because the gender gap here has been closed globally by about 94%, and 95%, it will take only 14.2 years maybe in our life to complete this and to close this gap. As far as the health and survival is concerned, the time to close this gap is undefined, because this is very subjective and probably underreported. When COVID came, there was further broadening of the gap, because the men still continued to work, but the women could not because of the several other issues which were pending at home. And so there were school closures, limited availability of care service providers, increased amount of stress, job insecurity, etc. And this gap further widened. Now, if you look at the geographical distribution, you would see that South Asia and Middle East and North Africa, this gap is the widest, and that is why they are red as shown here. And again, the geographical distribution, if you see in the gender gap, South Asia, in terms of time to close the gender gap, in years is longest, almost 200 years. In India, if you see, we are only better than Bangladesh, and we are only better than Bangladesh and maybe Pakistan. Again, if you see the ranking of India as far as the gender gap is concerned, we are 140, way behind as compared to other countries. And there is, currently what happens is that the women are forced, especially for labor, there is a forced participation rate, which is much less for men as compared to women. And if you see, compare this with male and female by gender, the share of participation at work across India, it's not changed really much if you see from 2014 to 2021, and it's pretty much remained the same. Now in professional and technical roles again, I put it in the lower list which is there. India is 29.2%, and like I said earlier, maybe the only countries in our own South Asia, Pakistan and Bangladesh are the ones which we are ahead of. In senior positions also, if you see, and this was a review article from where it has been picked up, it is only in 14.6% that women are there. If you look at the average income, it is much less for women as compared to average men. It is less by 20.7% of an average man. If you look at the political participation, I hope it increases after Modi's passed out that there is going to be increased reservation for women. But if you compare it with the in the years, in fact, if you compare it even during the government, when this government took over, there was a decline by 10%. Literacy rate, of course, the literacy rate, like I said, education is something where we are much ahead, and health and survival is something which cannot be gauged because it is too subjective. So the question which was asked earlier, that is there a gender gap? There is a gender gap which will take many years to close as far as the various norms nationally are concerned. Imagine a gender equal world, which is very difficult, a world which is free of bias, stereotypes, discrimination, diverse, equitable, and is inclusive. And together we can forge women's equality and we can break the bias, but whatever small steps we take now, the results are going to take a long time to happen. The government has taken some schemes, some actions politically as well as in education, and generation equality in the Asia and the Pacific region has also been something which is propagated by United Nations, which says orange the world and end violence against women, etc. And there are several things which are there which need to be looked at. Now, if you look at the women leaders, women in police forces have been here, and we've heard a wonderful presentation just before this. And Kiran Bedi was the first woman in India to join the officer rank and was awarded the Raman Magsaysay Award. In finance, we have again a lot of women like Rachna Fatke, Ranade in the chartered accountant, and women entrepreneurs are there who have now come up. Just to show pictures of the few who are very much there. In sports, of course, they have excelled, and we have so many of them in various sports, in Olympics, in cricket, as well as in tennis, who have won several of the major titles. This is just to highlight the fact that India's first female doctor who made Calcutta Medical College start admitting women was Dr. Kadambani Ganguly, a symbol of women's liberation. And Dr. Anandi Bai Joshi was the first female Indian physician and first Indian woman to have gained a degree in Western medicine. We have women, Madame Curie, who was the first woman to receive 2 Nobel Prizes. And then we have women leaders also on the political front, though the number is less, but I'm sure and I completely believe they have made a huge impact. As far as ophthalmology is concerned and leadership roles in ophthalmology is concerned, I think it is very important for us to analyze ourselves whether we desire to be in a leadership or role or not, whether we want to contribute or not, and whether we have the time to do it or not. More often than not, what happens is that there is self-hesitation and you don't want to get into it. So if you don't want to get into it and you are happy about it, it is completely okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But if there is a desire to contribute, you have to find time to do it. Now, it is important to know that true leadership cannot be appointed or assigned, and sometimes, in fact, I feel all the times, titles are meaningless. Leadership has to be earned, and titles only help you to increase your influence a little bit, but or to undermine it, but power is in the person and not in the chair, and what you really want to do, you can do even without being on the chair. I think the law of picture is important, and I always put this picture because it was after this picture, which was an event in Nara Netralaya, that I did think of getting into a leadership role, because when you contribute into academics and you contribute into science, then you want to make a difference to the society and you want to give it back. So you have to set an example yourself first for people to follow you. It is very important to identify role models, and my role model is sitting right here, Dr. Lalit Verma, in ophthalmology, in leadership, in ophthalmology, and in organization, and several other things that I have learned from him right from day one when I entered his OPD in room number 41 in RP Center. And thank you, sir, for always being there. Till today, when I am doing my first conference as chairperson scientific committee, then you have to have mentors, you have to emulate somebody, and then you have to be a part of the networking groups. Law of connection is very important because communication is the way to success. Communication is the key to success. So connectivity is important, communication is important. And I think once you have power, it is important to empower others, because only when you make others win, you shed your insecurity, you can bring about a change. And I think that voice comes from everybody's conscious after you reach a particular level, when you want to empower others and give it to others. Women Ophthalmic Society in India was started a few years back, and Dr. Namrata Sharma started it. And at that time, people felt it was not required. Even I felt it was not required. And I think the ideology behind this was that not all women are going to be given opportunities, which some have. So this was created to give opportunities to people, and it has served well in its purpose, whether it is research or it is academics, it is podium or it is networking, or networking at all levels, whether it is advocacy or it is trade. And then this has now grown into Women Ophthalmology Worldwide, which has chapters from all over the world, not only from the country. There are 14 state chapters in India already, and now this is encompassed from all over the world. And I think that is the way to go, and that is the way to do it. Important thing is to buy in, because people buy into the leader first and then the vision. And this I've just put in because through this agenda I entered All India Ophthalmological Society, and so it is important to put forth what you are going to envision. And to conclude, I would just like to conclude by what Dr. APJ Kalam said, that empowering women is a prerequisite for creating a good nation. When women are empowered, society with stability is assured. And empowerment is something which is essential, as their value system leads to the development of a good family, society, and ultimately a good nation. So all the women out there, please move out of your families, out of your profession, to empower others and to make a difference. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Very well said, ma'am.